What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about when Odin could appear to Atreus in God of War Ragnarok. Another theory video, and this one's tough, but I want to use this video, and I want to use this kind of theory and placement of when Odin visits to kind of explain how I also think God of War Ragnarok could do the one-shot camera, but kind of spice it up a little bit, being able to, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, split up the characters. Now, this actually was kind of done, if you think about it, in God of War 2018, in which when Baldur, right, the stranger, shows up at the door, Kratos puts Atreus down, and to make it still one shot, but to eliminate one of the characters, you kind of had to have one put the other away, right? Tuck him into bed, under the house, and then go answer the door. And so that's how they managed to pull it off, where Atreus didn't have to be part of that fight. So what I really strongly still believe is that Odin is going to visit Atreus at the same time Kratos is, and I'll be the risky one, I'll say battling Thor. Now, I do think no matter what, I'd be willing to bet on this one, that Kratos will not be present. Kratos will not be present when Odin comes to visit Atreus, and it's for the pretty simple reason in that I really do believe, maybe not in terms of what he's saying, right, how you hear his voiceover in the story trailer, the voice doesn't have to match the scene, and I don't think it does, but that scene in which Atreus opens the door and Odin is standing there, his silhouette, right, kind of to match Kratos in 2018, I think that's early in the game, and I do think that happens without Kratos being there, because I do think that starts Odin putting the seeds of doubt into Atreus, starting to try to get him onto Odin's side. Now, I have seen theories where Atreus maybe is going to let Odin talk to him, and of course he's dealing with Kratos, but ultimately Atreus is smart enough to be able to kind of figure things out and make his own decision at the end. I'm not sold on that entirely, but I do think the seeds of doubt, or the trying to separate father from son, is going to happen in that Odin confrontation with Atreus, in which Odin's going to kind of come and say hey, I kind of know what's about to happen here with Ragnarok. You kind of know what's about to happen here. And, maybe there's a way around it. Maybe there's a way to, mix things up. But your dad is really going to be an issue. So we're going to have to try to avoid that situation, right? I really think that's going to be kind of his basis, his thesis to Atreus. That's what's going to happen. Now, getting Kratos out of the equation. Getting Kratos out of a scene is a lot harder than getting Atreus out, because I just gave the example of 2018. You simply tuck him into bed underneath the house, and then he's gone, and you only have one character left. And because you play as Kratos, you have to be playing as him. It makes a lot of sense, and it works. Now, I really do believe you can still do this, and you can get Kratos away from Atreus while playing as Kratos separately. So I'll say the Thor fight, and the only reason I say the Thor fight is because I firmly believe a couple other things. We're going to face him more than once. We'll face Thor more than once. We probably won't face Odin more than once, but we'll face Thor more than one time. And the scene that we see at the end of the trailer in which they're battling on the frozen lake, that is the first time. I know people have kind of spotted the Bifrost, and that's a good indicator of what period of the game that we're in. Now, actually, a couple things to notice. I believe he doesn't have Mimir at that time, so Mimir wouldn't be present. That's interesting, right? We know Mimir is going to get separated from Kratos at some point in this game. Who knows if it's multiple times? Who knows if it's forced separation, or Kratos simply puts him down? But when he fights, Thor, he also doesn't have his blades. He only has the axe. So I really do think it's possible that Thor gets him when he's not really expecting it, and they get the fight to that lake, which is not uncommon, because Baldur's fight, in the beginning of 2018, that took him in a couple, general area of his house, yes, but still not directly in front of it. So I do think if he catches him off guard, he wouldn't have Mimir on him, and he wouldn't have the blades on him, because he would simply only have that axe, and he'd be able to fight Thor. Now, I actually believe, even if it's not happening at the same time as Odin, the situation, around it is going to be what I just said, that he's going to catch him off guard, stuff like that. Now, the only issue is, how do you get that scene to set up, and how do you get us back and forth between them? The only thing I can think of is Odin's Ravens, okay? Now, honestly, I think to the opening of God of War 3, and the only reason I think to that opening is because it's also one shot, and it's kind of this panning of Mount Olympus and climbing up it, but it's kind of just showing, you see the battle kind of on the ground level. It climbs up. You see all the gods. You see Kratos. You see Gaia, all that stuff. But it's playing out in like a fluid motion. Does that make sense? And I think with Odin's Raven, you could probably have something similar where he's watching Kratos. And it actually makes sense, right? Because if he's going to show up to the house without Kratos, he would need to know that Kratos isn't there. How would he know that? A couple different ways, I suppose, but the Raven is one of them. And the reason it's a Raven, the reason I bring that up, is because of the kind of fluid motion, the fluid flight. So if you're able to, say, playing as Kratos, you're playing as him, and you fight Thor, and then that fight, organically gets you to the lake, and you're battling Thor, I could see, and it's kind of a cinematic cutscene, right? But it's kind of in-game. But I could see them pulling out of that shot using a Raven and flying back with the Raven back to the house. And that's how we then get Atreus's kind of frame, his point of view, and that's when Odin would open the door and you would talk. Now, I guess to get back, back to Kratos, you'd have to take the Raven and fly backwards. It's not perfect, okay? I'm not here saying this is a bulletproof argument here, but I do think the idea of a Raven basically carrying the camera, like the camera would focus on the Raven and follow it. I think that's how you could get from one scene with one character in Kratos, and you could fly back to the house using the Raven, one shot, you're not cutting scenes or anything, you go back, and then you're with Atreus. And you can just imagine Thor and Kratos are just beating the living daylights out of each other, a couple miles down the road. I think that could work. Now, again, whether it happens in that specific order or whether Kratos is just out farming, or tending a garden while, when Odin comes in, any way, you still need to separate them, and you still need a way of getting from one character, because you need to understand what they're doing, and then you need to kind of, quickly transition to the next character, and that being Atreus, so you could see Odin open the door. That's what I'm assuming. It all rests upon Kratos not being there. And also, and the main reason I really think about that is, why would Kratos let Atreus open the door during this kind of time period? And that may sound very silly, but he never opens the door. Kratos opens the door with Thor, with Baldur. You'd just imagine Kratos is going to be the one that if there's basically, right, because of the situation they're in with Ragnarok nearing, if there's a knock on their door, it probably isn't positive. There's nobody there that's knocking to check in on them. So why would the kid, who's still a kid, he's a teenager, but he's still young, why would he be the one to open it? Because it could be Odin, for all you know. It could be Thor with a lightning hammer, right? Dangerous characters, Freya. All these characters pose harm to them, so why would Atreus open the door? The only reason Atreus would open the door, maybe he thinks it's Kratos coming back, or he's just opening it out of curiosity, but the only way he would open it is if he's by himself. He can't, in my opinion, he's not going to open it with Kratos there. So it's some risky bets here. I'm taking some risky bets, but I feel pretty good about it. So let's see what happens, but let me know your theories, your thoughts in the description. When does Kratos fight Thor? When does Odin show up to Atreus? How could you separate them and get from one shot to the other? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.